65,000 to 16,000. But even with this decrease, the world, I feel like, has been getting more dangerous. My team and I negate the resolve the United States should eliminate their nuclear arsenal. The con-side negates the resolution by keeping the United States nuclear arsenal. The first definition we would like to talk about is the word eliminate. It means to put an end to or get rid of. Therefore, part of this debate, it should be brought up just how a country would go about disposing of a nuclear weapon and how much it would cost. Definition 2, according to the New York Times, a nuclear weapon is a weapon triggered by an explosive reaction that shoots off destructive energy locked inside the bomb's atomic materials. Nuclear bombs use both fusion and fission explosions to create mass power. The word nuclear strikes fear in the heart of Americans when all it is a scientific term used to describe how atoms react with each other. Definition 3 is what defines the United States. Robert Statham states the United States territories may create their own legislation, but as a territory, it is governed by the United States, but it is not a state in and of itself. They have less legal and political status. Are U.S. territories included in the United States? Observation 1, the con-side negates the resolution by keeping the United States arsenal for defense purposes. If the United States were rid of their nuclear arsenal, they would be without defense from other countries with nuclear weapons. Observation 2, the resolution fails to pay attention to the national power dynamic shift that would occur if the U.S. were to eliminate its nuclear arsenal. If the United States wants to keep its power that it has on a worldwide stage, they must keep their nuclear arsenal. Contention 1, nuclear arsenals can work as a defense for the United States. Jonathan Tepperman stated in an article that there are 2 observations towards the argument of nuclear weapons as agents of peace. First, nuclear weapons have not been used since 1945, so we do not necessarily know how it currently affects our power control system worldwide. Second, there has been a nuclear war between 2 states. There has never been a nuclear war between 2 states who both possess nuclear agents. Kenneth Waltz, a professor of political science at UC Berkeley, noted that it has been 64 years since Hiroshima. To understand why it has been 64 years since nuclear weapons were used and why the next 64 years will look the same, there are 2 main points. First, all countries are rational on some level. Leaders may be stupid, petty, and corrupt, but they typically do things they can get away with. Take war, for example. A country is not going to start a fight if they do not think they can win. Second, nuclear weapons make the cost of war obvious and unacceptable. When the side knows they can turn the other side to ashes, there is different math that occurs in the thought process. As Walt puts it, why fight if you can't win and might lose everything? This concept is known as MAD, or mutually assured destruction. MAD induces great caution, and international politics discourages the use of nuclear threats to resolve disputes and generally restrains superpowers' behaviors, according to Lieber and Press in The Rise of Nuclear Primacy. Contention 2. Nuclear control improves security. In order to have a nuclear arsenal, there must be control. A limitation on who can and cannot have a nuclear arsenal is crucial to keep balance between countries. Guidelines regarding the number of missiles and mileage between their launching grounds also play a crucial part in the United States nuclear arsenal. There have been 2 treaties that have been signed in order to keep the peace between multiple countries as well as their respective arsenal in check. First, the Treaty of Limitation of Anti-Ballistic Missile Systems was an agreement between the United States and the Soviet Union that each country could only have 2 deployment areas so restricted that they wouldn't be able to provide a nationwide ABM defense. Second, the treaty between the United States of America and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics on the elimination of their intermediate range and shorter range missiles, commonly referred to as the INF Treaty, requires destruction of the parties' ground-launched ballistics and cruise missiles with ranges of between 500 and 5,500 kilometers, their launchers and associated support structures and support equipment within 3 years after the treaty enters into force. There's one important safety commission we must also discuss, the Nuclear Regulation Commission, which formulates policies and regulations governing nuclear reactors, issues orders to licensees, and adjudicates legal materials brought before. The NRC works with regulatory research and risk analysis, system analysis, and engineering to preemptively secure the safety of the nuclear arsenal in the United States. These treaties have kept a grip on the United States nuclear arsenal and other countries as well. It is because of these treaties and laws alike that the United States can protect its citizens, but are kept in check by these stipulations and rules. If it weren't for these treaties, eliminating the nuclear arsenal may have been a necessity. However, with these laws and treaties, we don't need to. Having control over what countries can have nuclear arsenal as well as limiting the amount of launching locations helps maintain a balance. Through this, the United States can protect its territories as well as its citizens in a controlled and regulated way.
since our opponents are arguing here that the United States should continue to have its nuclear weapons, they argue that it's for use of security and safety. My group and I are opposed that. We suggest that if you're really in favor to maintaining our nuclear weapons, then why don't you share the nuclear warheads that we have to other world leaders so that everybody in this world can have an equal amount of nuclear weapons for the whole world's safety and security. In addition, I would argue that in the past, wars have been fought with the use of nuclear weapons, and such countries that have used nuclear weapons still lose in the world, in the war battle. In my opinion, I think that the United States of America should move on and decrease the use of its nuclear warheads, because it is an obligation to set up examples for other countries throughout the world, since the United States is a world superpower. In addition, I would also like to announce that ever since the UN was founded, its main priorities was to maintain a global peace throughout the world. Therefore, if the United States pushes to eliminate its nuclear warheads, it would be well seen throughout the UN community, and other nations will follow the US steps. As stated before, countries have fought wars with the use of nuclear weapons, and still they have lost. For example, recent history suggests that nuclear has been fought. For example, Egypt and Syria attacked Israel armed forces in the 1973, and Iraq launched missile attacks on Israel cities during 1991. In addition, the United States was staying in Korea and war in Vietnam. The U.S. have fought wars like in Vietnam, where they have also lost. Such weapons haven't helped us in Iraq or Afghanistan, and the Soviet Union lost not only its own war in Afghanistan, but in the Cold War itself. Despite its nuclear arsenal, the USSR design has also, in the past, have also lost wars. In conclusion, I just want to state that it is an obligation for us to go for global peace and to stop the use of nuclear weapons, not only for wars but also for tests, because these nuclear weapons are a danger to our health and also to our environment. That is it. Hope you vote for us to be affirmative.
To refute their first contention, the amount spent on the United States nuclear arsenal is not just spent on the production and upkeep of the bombs. According to Web Archives, in 1996, of the $5.8 trillion spent on nuclear weapons, only 7% is used to build the bomb, and 0.5% 5% to dismantle the bomb. On the defense side, 16% of the budget was used to defend against the bomb. Of the $5.8 trillion spent, 6.3% was also spent on nuclear waste management and environmental remediation. These funds were used to protect the United States as well as the environment from the nuclear plants as well as the waste produced by them. They say that if it's not broke, don't fix it. But even if it is broke, the United States has a plan as well as funds to fix it. The money spent on the United States arsenal is not used solely on production. The billions spent on maintenance and protection keep the United States defended. To address the statement of Chernobyl, that accident took place in Russia, whereas in the United States, for example, the 3 Mile Island incident that occurred March 1979 happened here in the United States in Pennsylvania. A leak occurred at the nuclear generating plant, but the government was prepared and had a plan to keep Americans safe. There were no deaths or illnesses of people, animals, or plants in the months that followed the accident. Because of our emergency system and protocol, it was concluded by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that the actual release had negligible effects on the physical health of the environment, the people, and the animals surrounding. MAD, which is mutual aid destruction, is essentially the idea that if one country with a nuclear weapon were to attack another country with a nuclear weapon, that it would essentially be a suicide attempt. MAD keeps countries from attacking. However, if the country being attacked did not have a nuclear arsenal, MAD would not be put into play. MAD leads to this concept of nuclear peace. To use historical evidence, by the early 1960s, the nuclear arsenal of the United States and the Soviet Union had grown so large and sophisticated that neither country would entirely destroy the other's retaliatory force by launching first. Even with a surprise attack, starting a nuclear war was therefore tantamount to committing suicide. Take the mother of all nuclear standoffs, the Cuban Missile Crisis. For 13 days in October 1962, the United States and the Soviet Union each threatened the other with destruction, but both countries soon stepped back from the brink when they recognized that a war would have meant certain for everyone. As important as the fact that they did is the reason why. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev aided Fyodor Berlatsky said later on, it is impossible to win a nuclear war, and both sides realized that maybe for the first time. Even in comparison to North Korea now, if either side were to strike, it would lead to self-destruction due to sheer force of each side's nuclear stockpile. All this is to say, if the United States were to get rid of their stockpile, we would have no form of defense against other countries with nuclear arsenals.
To address the Chernobyl comparison to 3 Mile Island. Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island were both instances where nuclear effects were human error, essentially. In 3 Mile Island, this saying that people haven't died is untrue. The cleanup and exposure to radiation alone causes cancers and other health risks, especially in women and children, are the most sensitive populations. According to what I found on history.com, in 1977, 69% showed support, and after 3 Mile Island, there was a significant drop. So, if we have human error, if that can occur, why leave people open to the possibility of getting sick or damaged? If we look at the EPA considers radiation effects as causes of genetic material damage and cancers, and acute exposure can cause death in as
little as a few hours in some cases. Again, how nuclear disasters spread is through air, water contamination, and if you say that you have no proof of people being harmed, well, you can look at Chernobyl as the radiation that occurred from that circulated due to climate patterns. Another example I have is dealing with a groundwater contamination in North St. Louis County, Missouri, where there was a nuclear leak and it affected the groundwater and a creek that ran through a residential area, which led to numerous residents in that area becoming sick with all the cancers listed online. We have another example of how nuclear can be damaging, which is Goldsboro, North Carolina, where a B-52 bomber accidentally lost control when he dropped a bomb in 1961, and those bombs were 260 times more powerful than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And a study published by PBS measures the health effects of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where 94,000 people who were exposed to the nuclear waste and process were studied, along with 26 who weren't, and of each of those groups, only 1/3 remains. While those numbers are different, it shows how health can be affected by nuclear. We already have, without nuclear radiation, in 4 in 10 Americans getting cancer. On that, if you increase exposure to nuclear waste, there's more likely that we will get cancer. And evidence that I have to say that is Dr. John Boyce, professor of medicine at Vanderbilt University, is currently working on a project measuring the exposure for workers who work on the Manhattan Project, which is they're given a device that measures their exposure to nuclear activity, and then that level is compared to their health and later their death rates when they die. This is an epidemiological study. It shows the analysis patterns and causes and effects of health and disease. Furthermore, 1 in 50 Americans are already living near nuclear waste. We have so much nuclear waste that there's not enough in the U.S. to store it, and we don't currently have high-level waste, but there is a lower-level waste facility in New Mexico. Additionally, we have spent fuel tanks that are meant to be temporary storage for nuclear rods, but we don't have enough, or any permanent storage, so nuclear energy is nuclear rods are being stored there permanently. With that information, and I would also like to quickly go over Hanford once again, because 44 years of plutonium production related to solid waste and contaminated many products. Also, the EPA spends 10% of its budget yearly on that, and has already paid out $1.5 billion to people who were affected by it. With that, I would like to urge you to vote for the affirmative. Thank you.
First, I would like to repeat the point of the first speaker, which she said a threat is no more than, which she said nuclear weapons are more likely to cause the country to make threats to other countries, which a threat is no more than words and poses no harm to anyone. So the U.S. making a nuclear threat to another country has done them no damage at all. And then, next I'll go to what the second speaker was talking about. When he said, why not give nuclear weapons to all nations? First of all, the U.S. is a super nation, so other nations shouldn't have everything that we have. They shouldn't have access to everything we have. Why would we want third world countries to have access to nuclear weapons when they aren't even capable of having their own healthcare and other things? And another thing, too, we will put enemies at an equal playing field, and why would we want enemies having the same weapons that we have? That make no sense for slavery. He said He also said it has not helped in Iraq or Afghanistan. Well, the level of destruction caused by a nuclear weapon is big enough to destroy the entire nation. So we were not at war with Iraq or Afghanistan itself. We were fighting terrorist groups that live in both countries. So it would be outrageous of us to destroy the entire nation when we're just the small group of people that live inside the nation.
Wait a minute. Are you saying every single nuclear weapon that we have can destroy whole countries? Or are you just saying, like, so ballistic missiles are technically nuclear weapons that destroy whole countries?
No, we can't.
So you're saying that when we were attacking Afghanistan with nuclear weapons, it was destroying a whole country, but it didn't?
No, what I'm saying is, why would we use our best nuclear weapons just to fight a small group of people? And I mean, yes, we use other nuclear weapons, but of course, like I said, we were fighting smaller groups of people inside the nation, which we couldn't use our best nuclear arsenals against them.
Thank you.
And then another thing I want to say, which nuclear weapons, yes, they're dangerous, but that's the whole point of it. When we drop a nuclear weapon against a country, it's to destroy them. It's not anything that's meant to be nice. We know they're very dangerous and they're very lethal. And then I wanted to go back to the 3 Mile Island accident, which I think the last speaker brought up, which there were no deaths or illnesses because of the U.S. emergency system and protocol, which prevented things from being a lot worse than what they could have been.
There is proven evidence that people are still suffering from that, still like having cancer and radiations. Do you contend that even though they're not dead, they can still be dying from the accident?
Sources on the website said there were no deaths or illnesses because of the U.S. emergency protocol. So,
What is it?
the United States government.
Has the U.S. government ever given like evidence or stuff from us before?
Yes, but now you're questioning the credibility of the U.S. government. Which we have no evidence that they have seen anything, so I have no reason not to go with what they said because we have no reason not to go with what they said.
Thank you.
But yes, but like I was saying, there were no deaths or illnesses reported of the 3 Mile Island accident. Yes, that's all I have. Thank you.
I'm Judge. Before I begin, do you have any specific paradigms, things that you do not like?
Just be respectful.
Can I begin?
Now, this debate is centered around the elimination of nuclear arsenals. This House believes nuclear arsenals should be eliminated. Why? Because as Baisat Kukeda stated, so long as nuclear weapons continue to exist, so will the temptation to threaten others with overwhelming military force. The opposition stated clearly that nuclear weapons have not been used since 1945 and will remain so for the next 65 years. So it's pointless to spend money on it. The opposition also clearly stated, if it's not broke, why fix it? Well, they stated it won't be broken for the next 65 years. So again, why continue to spend billions of dollars on it? Lastly, the opposition stated that building nuclear weapons has resulted in no damage and no side effects. Now, let's talk about the healthcare side effects of it. Now, we are spending billions on healthcare due to the side effects of creating these nuclear weapons. According to research, $1.5 billion was spent on healthcare for the site workers in the Hanford Center, in the Hanford nuclear site in Washington, D.C. $1.5 billion. We are currently spending billions and will continue to spend billions in nuclear arsenals. It is a never-ending Cold War. If we eliminate nuclear weapons, so will other countries because they have no reason to continue investing in nuclear arsenals. According to the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, we recognize that no human creation can ever be disinvented, including nuclear weapons. Civilization has nevertheless prohibited and dismantled artifacts deemed too dangerous, damaging, or morally objectionable to continue living with. In conclusion, building nuclear weapons will result in nuclear waste. And these nuclear wastes have side effects on me and you. These site workers suffering from these side effects reduce the amount of money that we have. We're spending $1.5 billion on it. Let's get rid of it. Let's eliminate it. And that is why, judges, I believe with the points that I have provided, negating what the opposition stated, that you should vote for the affirmative. Thank you.
I want to start by saying this. If you're concerned about the nuclear waste, what's going to happen to all the when we eliminate these nuclear weapons, where do you think it's going to go? It's going to become waste, and we're not going to be able to just eliminate these nuclear weapons without involving people. Like, people are going to have to work on these weapons to eliminate them. And with the elimination of these nuclear arsenals and these nuclear weapons will become waste. There's no way to just poof, make things disappear. Also, you may have won with the cost of nuclear arsenals. Yes, it does cost money. Yes, we are putting all this money into nuclear arsenals when we're not using them. But at the same time, we're also putting money into the NRC, which is working on creating a safer place for these nuclear weapons and these nuclear arsenals, and this nuclear power, which as the United States we use not for weapons, but also just for nuclear power. You mentioned, so to help the cleaner environment. Yes, you won that, yes. But it's also irrelevant because with the argument of MAD, so the mutually destruction, if we did eliminate our nuclear arsenal, lots of people don't like the United States. So as soon as we eliminated that nuclear arsenal, all these countries would be allowed to attack us easily. They would have no consequence against them because we would have nothing left to attack them with because we would have no nuclear arsenal. And again, with the global peace, again, also, mutually destruction. If we got rid of our nuclear arsenal, it wouldn't allow for all these other countries wouldn't be like, oh, the United States got rid of theirs, might as well just get rid of mine too. Because most countries also, if they have nuclear weapons, they might not have as much money as the United States, and it'll be even harder for them to eliminate these nuclear arsenals. And then you stated that the U.S. is, you stated that everyone should have nuclear weapons. But nuclear weapons shouldn't be, these countries, these third world countries who are going through civil wars, shouldn't have nuclear weapons to where they can just attack their own country and their own people with these nuclear weapons. And then also, you said, so I stated that the United States is widely hated by many other countries. And it would give, if other countries were given these nuclear weapons, it would give them the opportunity to attack us. And you're minimizing what would happen if we just eliminated our nuclear arsenal, because it's not as simple as that. Also, earlier you mentioned Syria and Iraq. That's completely irrelevant. This resolution is simply stating the United States. It shouldn't involve Syria and Iraq. Also, you stated that Russia won the Cold War. That's wrong. No one won the Cold War. And then you mentioned the human error that could be involved, or you mentioned human error that can happen with these nuclear arsenals and these nuclear plants. But again, what about the human error that can occur while dismantling these bombs? Because, again, bombs aren't going to just dismantle themselves, anyways, without major impacts on other countries. And then, also you mentioned the nuclear waste and people living near them. I do not believe that I believe that it does impact people, it does. But also these people have a choice to live there. When they move there, they're being told these are the consequences, this is where you live. You're not going to just move into somewhere and be like, oh, there's a nuclear plant in my city and I don't know about it. If that does happen, then that's kind of your fault. You need to do research on where you're living. If you're moving in somewhere, you should know if there's a nuclear plant nearby. And then, and that's all I have. Finished. We're done.
All right, that concludes round 2. Thank you, audience, for being here. Please make sure you sign in if you're here for extra credit.
Are you gonna tell us who won?
I need a moment.
Can we hear any of your, I don't care, I just think
Yeah, it's back there.
What? Like your content student? Or yeah, like one of my kids registered in class.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Processing.
I think I'm gonna go to. I do want to see. They're arguing about